Everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today for today's Profit Revolution Masterclass, at least night one of it. My name is Hannah Pratt. I am the event manager here at Harrell's, and I just want to welcome everybody for tuning in today. The Profit Revolution Masterclass, just to give you a little bit of background about why we're doing it and why we're doing this three-part series. It's just a collaboration between Harrell's, the lawn care CEO, and Spray. And one of our core values here at Harrell's is to invest in people and help you guys be successful. So that's one reason why the three of us all have aligned together to present this three-part masterclass series. So ultimately, we want to help you guys grow your business and be more profitable. So today you'll be hearing from the lawn care CEO, Dan and Aaron. And they are going to be presenting on ways to basically just grow your business. And if you have any questions during their presentation, you can put them in the Q&A feature within Zoom, and we will do our best to get to those either throughout the presentation or at the very end. And also be sure to drop your first name, last name, and city and state that you're tuning in from today to one, let us know you're here, and two, to be entered in to win an Arctic cooler. We're going to raffle that off at the very end, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We are recording this entire webinar, and we will send out a link to the recording after the fact, probably within the next couple days, to everybody. So whether you're able to tune in the whole time or just up for a short time, we're just glad you're here, and just know you're going to get a copy of that recording emailed out to all those who registered. So don't just tune in today. Be sure to tune in to the next 2 Tuesdays following this to hear from other people within our masterclass. So thanks again for being here. We appreciate your time. I know it's in the evening and there's all kinds of stuff in your life that's going on. So we appreciate you being here, and we hope you learned something. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dan from the Lawn Care CEO, and he's going to be presenting tonight. So Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. We like Hannah. Hi, everyone. It's a little weird. I wish I could see all of you. So as was mentioned, my name is Dan Ralphs. I'm the head coach, the Lawn Care CEO. And I just want to I have this weird quirk. And if you'll just indulge me, I know that we're in this weird quasi television situation where you can see me, but I can't see you. It's sort of like the lights are bright and I'm on stage. So if you would do me a favor, again, the rules of play, we're not above bribing you to participate a little bit here today. So we're giving away an Arctic cooler at the very end. If you're smart, you're hoping no one really participates except for you. So if you would go to the chat, I think this is working. So if somebody just go to the chat, type in 3 things: your name, where you hail from. You can just put the state or city state, and then how many trucks that you run. So I have a little bit of the sense of the size of your business. So like I said, I have this weird quirk. I have a hard time teaching unless I know who's there. So again, in the chat, all right, Ted, 10 points for Ted from who knows where. All right, this is good. You guys are participating. This is fantastic. So Ryan, Tim, Dexter from New York. Fantastic. I'm seeing somewhere between like 1 and 4 trucks. Is there anybody with more than 4 trucks? I'm looking. Awesome. Kent, welcome. Glad to have you. John, 4 trucks, 5 trucks. Oh, you guys are really good at this. I can't even keep up with them all. All right. Apparently the bribery is working, which I'm very happy about. All right. I wish you could get to know all of you individually. That's not going to work. 1 truck, 2 truck, 5 trucks. This is Zach. Welcome from North Carolina. A lot of North Carolina people here registered today. Welcome all you North Carolina folks. Thank you, Court, for bringing in your North Carolina crew. Red truck, blue truck. James, what does that even mean? All right. Hey guys. So without further ado, we have a lot of work to do today. I want to kind of introduce this idea of the Profit Revolution Masterclass and the reason why we do it. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Dan Ralphs. This is my family. This probably tells you more than you need to know about me. I have 5 kids, most of them on purpose. And the reason I share this with you is one, to show you, look, I'm a normal human who wears a suit coat in the woods. Actually, it's more true that I'm a normal person who has a wife who really cares about cool family photos. I'm not sure that you have a wife like that. If you do, thank her, because someday I'm sure you'll appreciate all these family photos. I'm the head coach and founder of a company called the Lawn Care CEO. Our goal is really to help lawn care executives learn how to be better CEOs instead of just technicians. My partner, who's also on the call, his name is Aaron Suttonfield. And as you can see, Aaron's family is way cooler than our family. Not only way cooler, but they were way more efficient. They had their kids in half the time that we had our kids. And so we're super excited to get to know you, because like you, like, we have things that are bigger than profit. And today, this is all about how do we somehow get to the point where we have more profit. And because there are things bigger than that, right? Our families, our faith, our reason for being is bigger than profit. But profit's such an important element in all that happens here. At the Lawn Care CEOs, we have this kind of philosophy that our goal is to help others to do more good in the world. That's kind of our purpose. And I know that when you get on a call like this, I just want to introduce you enough to know that, you know, Aaron and I, and in a large part, our partners, Harrell's and Spray, the reason we're doing this, although certainly we have some like business motives behind it all. We want you to be successful, because if you're successful, that means we can better partner together, right? It's like a collaborative event. But at the heart of our heart of hearts, whether it's us at Lawn Care CEO or Spray or Harrell's, like, we all have this kind of philosophy where we believe, one, in good business karma, meaning when we put good out into the world, good comes back to us. Number two, we all have this philosophy that we're service first, we're people first, we're investing in people, like Hannah mentioned earlier, where our goal is to try to help you through the process of being business owners, because we know how hard it can be to successfully run, manage, and operate a business. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to try to help you over these next 3 calls. We're going to try to be as direct and straightforward as possible. We're going to try to get you to a point where you're more profitable. Quite literally, one of the things that probably breaks my heart more than anything else is when we have people that come to us from a coaching standpoint, and they're putting all of their effort and work in, but they're not having anything to show for it. The truth of the matter is, and maybe in just kind of like, see this little hand raise button? If you see the little hand raise button, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever had this experience. I was on a call just recently with a lawn care business owner. He, what was the exact number? It was something like he was doing maybe 850,000 in revenue each year. He had 3 or 4 trucks that he was running. They were doing lawn care, installation, maintenance, some fertilization, weed control. So they had kind of this suite of businesses. And I said, "Oh, 850 grand a year, congratulations. That's such a, that's a big business." And I think a lot of times when we go around comparing ourselves to other business owners, we compare top line. We say, "Well, how big are you? How big are you? How big are you?" And what we really probably should be comparing, the real thing to brag about, is our bottom line. And I said, "So is that a profitable 850,000?" And he looked at me and he gave me a face, something like this. It's like, we have no money. And to me, friends, that breaks my heart. Like, all of that effort, all of that sweat, all of those tears, all of those late nights, early mornings, and you get to the end of the year and it's like, you open up your bank account and it's like minus $15. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, I'm just like telling you right now, like, we have to stop that. And so we're like, Harold's spraying, we were like, we're going to just create a revolution. We're going to, as Greg, if Greg's listening, Greg would say, we're going to take over the world. We're going to change. We're going to cure polio. We're going to do something to try to make a difference, because it's too much work. It's too much effort to get to the end of the year and open your bank account and have $0 left or negative dollars left. And by the way, this isn't just true. This doesn't just happen with a few companies. It can happen to companies that actually are super successful, $2-3 million companies that are still struggling to get to that level of profitability. And so over the next 3 courses that we're teaching, our goal is to help you get to a point where you're more profitable. And if that sounds like something you're in for, you're in the right place. Stick around. We have 3 cracks at this. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of effort. In fact, the truth of the matter is, I love this picture. In order for you, by the way, in order for this to work, um, we're going to teach you some principles, but you have to be all in, committed, like this girl and cake committed to being profitable as a company. Is that going to make sense? Like you have to be at this moment where you go, no more. Like I am standing up. I am going to revolt against low profitability, and I'm going to be fully committed to making sure that we are profitable as a company. And the reality is like, it's okay. I'm the boss. I can decide if it's okay. But let me just share just one little principle about commitment. I had a friend who came to me the other day and he said, Dan, I want to teach you about commitment. I was like, all right. And he said, how long would it take you to make $1 million free and clear? I was like, it was a little while ago. I'm like, man, I don't know. And you can answer in your own head, but I said, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And he goes, okay, 10 years. He said, if I could triple your money, could you do it any faster? I was like, I don't know, maybe 3. If I really buckled down, I did it. I could do it in 3. And then he said, Dan, I know you have kids. And if your daughter, Emma, needed a surgery and it's going to cost $1 million, how long? I was like, I don't know. I'm robbing banks at that point, like weeks. And then he said something really interesting. He said, Dan, the difference between 10 years and 3 weeks is only a matter of how committed you are. I was like, wow, yeah. And so like, I'm like getting fired up because we're in revolutionary mode here. Like when we're talking about your business, and by the way, money doesn't matter. Like it does. Was it Brian Tracy who said, money isn't what life's all about. Money's like oxygen. It's not what life's about, but try living without it. And that's so true, right? Like we have to have money in our lives, but that's not what life's about. But I'm telling you right now, if you've experienced that feeling of getting to the bank account at the end of the month, like we're in trouble if we don't have any money left in the bank account, because it impacts our families, impacts our ability to be at our kids' soccer games. Like one of my favorite questions to ask is, what would happen if you were profitable? What would happen, business owner, if you really, if it was all together and the money was there, how would that change the way you approach your life? How would that change your life? And honestly, do you know what they'd tell me? They're like, I would go to my kids' soccer games on Saturdays. In fact, I want to ask that question to the room. So jump on your chat. If you had, so let's say double the profitability or triple the profitability, what would that mean to you? And so what's at stake for you? And what makes you feel like I got to be committed to this in order for me to get to where I want to go? So will you just type in your reason for being, your reason to get profitable and the reason to make sure that profitability is there? And I just want to read some because that'll help pump me up. Awesome. So Chris is like, I want to send my kids to college. Taylor's like, hey man, I want to take care of my team. James is like, man, if I can have more flexibility and more freedom, I want to retire earlier. I want to get to a point like the dream of all entrepreneurs. I want to get to a point where my business is running and operating, but I don't have to be in the day-to-day grind anymore. I want to give better benefits to my employees. I want to get rid of debt, right? So there are all of these things that deserve full-on commitment. And you can see that I'm kind of fired up about this and I'm not ashamed of it, because like, as far as I can tell, we only get one life. We only get one crack at this. And so for us to be all in about this matters. And so if you catch my passion about this, it's because I'm passionate about helping others do more good in the world. And when I read this list of things, like having more time with my family, paying for kids' college, helping employees, acquiring companies, I love that, paying off debt, no more late nights. All of those are reason enough for us to show up and just dig in. in a major way. All right. So enough ado. We're all in, committed to the work. And I want to just share with you a handful of things to try to help us get to where we need to be. And the question at hand, and again, money isn't necessarily what matters, but try living without it. Like money is power and it gives us power to do good in the world. So the question at hand is how do we significantly and meaningfully increase bottom line revenue in our companies? And that's what I want us to be focused on over the next three issues, the next three sessions of our Revolutionary Masterclass. Okay, we in? Yeah, thumbs up. All right, here we go. Ready? I want to keep this really simple, but this is going to be numbers based. You got to know your numbers. If you're going to win at the game of profit, you have to. It is not maybe, it's an absolute obligation. You have to know your numbers. When a CEO shows up to me, an owner of their business shows up to me and they're like, I'm just not a math person. It's very similar to someone coming to be hired as a mowing person that goes, I'm just not a grass person. You have to be a numbers person. That's the game. That's what we're up to. And so like take heart. The math we're going to teach you today is very simple. It's very basic. Everyone can get it. If you got through 5th grade, even with a C, we're going to be able to pull this off. Okay. So, but know that we're in the game to really know and understand our numbers, and knowing and understand our numbers begins here. So the very first thing, and this is going to be elementary for some of you, probably for most of you, is that we have to fall in love with our profit and loss statement. This is going to sound simplistic, but if this isn't happening in your company yet, please take your first note and say, all right, this is something that I got to go do. And the specific action is I need you to have clean, balanced books by the middle of each month, the middle of the following month, so that you can have a nice, clean profit loss statement. In order for us to do the work we're going to do today, to be able to get to a really solid, confident number as far as what we should be charging for our products, it begins with us having really sound, clean numbers. Now, if you don't have that yet, don't fret, don't stress. Like reach out in the chat, ask the question, reach out, reach out to Elon Kersey or somebody. We can connect you with a bookkeeper that can help you get that done. Or, go find your nearest bookkeeper that's not your uncle or your aunt who once did it in high school, right? Find somebody legitimate and competent, help them get those numbers cleaned up, because that's going to be the foundation we're going to build everything else on, is a foundation of solid numbers. Okay. So again, most of you, that's pretty elementary. Most of you, that's done. But I want to make sure for those of you who aren't quite there yet, and by the way, I've seen a lot of big companies that weren't quite there yet, to make sure that we have our profit loss statement engaged. So assuming that that's in place, and assuming we're balancing our budgets and we're moving forward week over week, let's talk about the very, what's KISS stand for? Oh, I wish we had more time. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So we're going to keep it very simple here. Profit is our income minus our COGS, which is our cost of goods sold, meaning how much does it cost us to produce the work, minus our overhead, meaning how much does it cost us to get new clients and keep the lights on, equals our profit. Now, I know that seems simple, but it's going to be important. We're going to build all of our pricing model that we're going to talk about today on this kind of framework of, we have two big costs. We have our cost of goods, we have our overhead, and our income is the foundation. So if we're not profitable, there are only 3 possible levers that we can pull on if we want to increase profitability. There are only 3 possible levers. Lever number 1, we can decrease our overhead. So if you're driving the pimped out Ford Raptors and have the vanity and you have a ton of overhead expense, one way we might increase our profit is we might make some decisions to sell some things, simplify. Maybe you have too many office staff members and you're going to give one a going away party soon. Whatever it is, but honestly, in my coaching and Aaron's coaching, this is usually the least common area where we find big opportunity when it comes to our profitability. So most of those things are fixed. Most of those things aren't going to be changing significantly. but still worth looking at. The second area where we might find opportunity to increase our profitability is in our efficiency. How much is it costing us to do the work? How much does it cost us to mow one lawn? How much does it cost us to install one tree? How much does it cost us to spray one yard? So this is the other area. Now, this deserves more conversation because this is one area where we do see companies kind of missing on profitability because their cost of goods is way too high. But we're not talking about that today. The area we're going to be talking about today is this one. How do we make sure that this price point that we're charging, the income we're receiving from our customers, is what it needs to be to deliver at the very bottom line a healthy profit? And how can we feel confident in that? And so today is all about, if we have 3 levers we're going to play around with. We're going to talk about the first one, which is how do we make sure that we're pricing our products in a way that makes sure that we're profitable? I'll tell you a quick story. So I was working with a lawn care company that were doing, I want to protect the innocent here, but they had a pretty big lawn mowing book of business. It was over $1 million a year in lawn care and just mowing. And we sat down and we went through the process that I'm going to take you through today, where we said, all right, let's evaluate how much is it costing us, cost of goods and overhead. How much is it costing us to mow a yard for one mow? And we discovered it was somewhere around $45.50 per hour, $45.50 per hour. And I said, how much are you charging? And it was like he got punched in the stomach. He was like, oh man, I am charging $45 an hour. And so literally every hour of mowing that they build for $1 million of hours, they lost 50 cents. Does that make sense? And so that's the number we're going to be paying attention to today. We're going to be paying attention to that top line number. I got to move quick here. All right. So question number 1, how do we decide what we should be charging for each one of our services? And there are lots of different ways people do this, right? We have this method. What's this method? This is the I trust my gut method. This is right. No matter what size your gut, everybody's gut's a little different. So we sometimes trust our gut. We're just like, it feels like this is going to be profitable. Another common method is we consult the neighbors. We say, all right, what are they charging? And what are they charging? And I go on Facebook and I say, hey, what are you charging for this kind of service? And I see that a lot. And so we're doing away with both of those methodologies. Those methodologies aren't going to give us the result that we want. To be sure that the price we charge minus the cost, minus the overhead is going to deliver profitability for our business. Because essentially a profitable business is someone who does a lot of jobs profitably. Is that too simplistic? Essentially, we got to consistently have at-bats where the price we charge minus the COGS, minus the overhead is profitable and hopefully wildly profitable. And so let me walk you through how I'm going to recommend that we spend our time to make sure that we do it right. And this is, I have to attribute this to our CEO, Aaron Suttonfield. Aaron said, hey, listen, I like to think about pricing as a 3-legged stool. And there is some, like, in order for us to make the stool balance, we have to get all 3 of these things to work correctly. Because if we miss even on one, it's not going to work for our business. And the first leg of the stool is it has to work for the customer. So the question becomes, can I sell it at the price that I've fixed for myself? Can I sell it to the marketplace? If we went out and we hung a sign and we said, we're selling watermelons at $5 a watermelon and they sold like crazy, what should we do? Might need to raise our price because clearly the market's saying, yeah, I'll accept that. If we went up and hung a sign, we said watermelons for sale and it was for $25 a watermelon and nobody bought a watermelon, what do we probably got to do? We're going to have to bring our price point down. And so at the end of the day, one of the groups that we have to consider, and as we're making our pricing, is we have to figure it out whether or not we can sell it. The way I kind of determine this, by the way, when I'm coaching a client, is I ask just simply one question. I said, what's your conversion rate? So if I talk to 10 clients and I quote them this price to 10 clients, how many of those 10 are going to say yes? And if the answer is 4 or 5 or 6, then we're probably in a good range to where it's like, yeah, this price works. We can sell it. And it's not, by the way, is it cheaper than my competitor? That doesn't have honestly a ton to do with it. Like when you go to the grocery store, do you only buy the cheapest bread? And some of you are like, yeah, like what else would you do? But there's a reason why there's a huge variability. By the way, like from like, it used to be $2 a loaf. I'm not sure it is now. $2 a loaf to like $5 a loaf. And there's this huge range. Well, all of those companies are still in business because people make pricing decisions, and there's price elasticity in the market, right? And so don't think because you're the cheapest that you're necessarily going to win. The truth is, as my partner likes to remind me, it's not necessarily the cheapest that wins, it's the fastest. So if I call 3 companies, it's the first one to get back to me that's going to win my business, even if they're priced a little bit higher. So just have some faith. Raising your prices doesn't immediately mean everyone's going to run away. Okay. So the first group that we have to pay attention to is we have to say, hey, can our customers do it? The second group, can we price it in a way where we can fulfill it in the proper amount of time? And I can hire a team that will do the job, work well, and they'll be happy for the work that I give them, right? So can we fulfill it? We have to be able to take care of our team. I noticed some of you put that in the chat. And the last group, and by the way, too often the group that gets neglected to the last is, does it work for the business? In other words, can we scale it? So if I were to sit across from you and I were to see your profitability, would it scale? So I like to think about profitability a little bit like this pen. So imagine that this pen is is a plate, and I have a bunch of things on my plate. The goal is to be able to tilt the scale in the direction of profitability, because if the scale is tilted in the direction of profitability, well, all of a sudden now we have resources to reinvest, and that allows us to, again, add more profit to the business. And we have this virtuous cycle. Well, if we're breaking even, then we never have the time or money that we need to invest into the business. Does that make sense? I call it business purgatory. If you're just break even, you're in business purgatory because we don't have the time or resources that we need to invest in growing the business. We don't have a scalable business until we tilt the scale towards profitability. And so obviously it has to work for the business. And if it doesn't work for all 3, we're not there yet. So our goal is to find a price point that works for both the customer, that meaning we can sell it, for the team, we can fulfill it, and then finally the business, we can scale it. Okay. So again, how do we do this? The goal is for us to be able to understand for each job that we have. And I know that some of you do a ton of services. The primary example we're going to use today is lawn care fertilization. So if I'm going to do a lawn care fertilization application, and that's 1 unit, I need to know, all right, what should I price it is the right price that allows us to fulfill it, have a cost of goods, pay our overhead, and be left with a healthy profit. And so I want to teach you how we do that today. Okay. All right. It starts with this number. In the chat. Oh, if I want to I feel like we should give like 2 extra submissions to a raffle. If you can say, yes, I currently know my hourly break even number. I want to give like bonus points to those people. And if you can make that happen, that'd be great. Anyone? Oh, David Warwick, you're cheating because we already taught this to you. All right. John Malloy, also cheating. Like all of our coaching clients are like, yeah, I know. All right. This is awesome. Thank you. Those of you who know, congratulations. So you'll see that it varies. If you look in the chat, you'll see that it varies. Like there are different numbers. And this is why we have to go through this process, because every one of you is going to have a unique hourly break-even number. And the hourly break-even number is simple. All it means is that for each hour that I'm billing, each labor hour I'm billing, how much do I need to bill to not only pay people to do the work, pay people to do the work, but also pay to keep the lights on, acquire new customers. So for my company to break even per hour, how much do I need to be charging? So this is the first number I'm really going to encourage you to figure out. So let me show you how you do that. So I'm going to reference this a few times because we have these like cool calculators. If you would prefer to use our calculator, you can get it here. So you either go to lawncareceo.com/pricing 101, or you can just click on this QR code and we'll give you access to this program. It includes all the calculators and all that stuff. And by the way, we're not trying to sell you anything here. It's all free. We just want to give you access to these tools because we're on a revolution of having no one have this suffering where they don't have they're not pricing things correctly anymore. So if you want the calculator, that's how you get it. But let me kind of show you how it works in order for us to figure out our calculator, okay? So here's my example. So this is the calculator live. So I went ahead and I put in some live numbers from a company that I worked with earlier. And this was their numbers. I said, okay, question number one. We looked at their P&L. We said, how much is on your total expenses? So all of your cost of goods, all of your expenses, your total expense. So cost of goods plus expense. How much did you spend out of pocket this year or last year? We did 2023. They said $899,312. I said, awesome. By the way, 2023 P&L, show you that number. Question number two, out of all of those expenses, how much was materials? He said $308,581. And were there any subcontractors? He said, yep, $37,547. So we put all of those numbers in. Now think about this. This is going to make sense if you think about it. Essentially what we're doing is we're saying, how much money did it cost us to run the business? Labor, materials, overhead, cell phone bill, everything. How much did it cost us to run the business? And then we're going to divide all of that by the number of billable man hours that we had for 2023. So we went to his payroll, pulled up his payroll. He said, looked up the billable man hours, and he had 15,362 billable man hours. And we said, all right, all of the expense, if we subtract the materials, because that's going to show up when we're creating our invoices, we subtracted the subcontractors, that's going to show up with them. And we just said, for every hour of labor that we bill, what do we need to charge in order just to break even as a company? Keep the lights on, not make any profit, just keep the lights on. And the answer was $36.01. Okay, for him. I was like, great, that's awesome. I said, do you have any debt? Now, the reason debt and distribution show up separately is because they're not going to show up on your P&L. We want to make sure that we address them. He said, I don't know. Yeah, I do have a lot of equipment. I said, how much do you pay for debt? He told me per month, and he multiplied it by 12, and we got $86,675. Put that in our calculator. I said, do you take any distributions? He said, no, all of my income comes from payroll. I said, okay, great. So that would already be accounted for in the expense line. All right. Hopefully this isn't too complicated so far. Again, first step, get clean books so that we can enter this data. And if you're not quite there, that's okay. We'll teach you what to do if you're having to make it up as we go. But this is what we ended up with. He said, all right, for me, in order for my company just to break even, for every billable man hour, I need to charge at least $41.65. I gave you the example earlier of the CEO where it was like, he needed to charge $45. And if you look through the list here, some people are 65 or 55 or 45 or 100 or 92 or, wow, 165. That might be a little high. All right, so does that kind of make sense? So you're going to find your man hour. And then for each man hour, we're going to say, hey, if we want a 30% margin, the minimum we need to charge is essentially $60 an hour. Is that going to make sense? So $60 an hour is minimum. Now, keep in mind, this really works best if you have your own numbers and you're not copying someone else's, because there's going to be pretty good variability in the amount we're spent, total expenses versus the number of man hours. It can vary $20 or $30, which is everything when it comes to profitability. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Now, as we go, if you have questions or you're stuck on something, just write your questions in the chat and Hannah will kind of sort through them. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. But step one is we need to understand, again, if we're going back to this slide, we need to understand essentially how much is it costing us to fulfill that one labor hour. That's what the hourly break even gives us. Because once we do that, then we can mark up that hour. And when we mark up that hour, that then allows us to know what we need to charge. Now, if I wanted to, make a little bit more profit, I might put 35 in there and I might go, all right, I'm going to move towards 65. Now, why do we put 30% in there instead of 40, 15 or 20? We go, man, if I just made 20%, I'd be happy. Think about that. Why would we put 30 and not just 20 or 15? The answer is that business nor life is lived on paper. So if we put 30 in there, it gives us a little bit of cushion. Meaning if I fall back down, if I miss on a job by 10%, I'm now at 20 or 15 if I really miss. So we give ourselves, put our line in the sand here with a little bit of cushion. If something goes wrong, we still have this room. We still have this profitability if we miss. Okay, we gotta keep going. We're gonna run out of time. So once we know our hourly break even, and again, really, I'm realizing, I'm just showing you how. You're going to have to go get the calculator, sign up for the course, and work through this on your own, all in, committed, right? So make sure you sign up for that. And it sounds so pitchy. It's just not pitchy. We just want to give you the information. All right. So what do I charge? How do we actually get to the number that we're going to give to a client when it comes to our recurring services? We're only going to talk about recurring services here. If you're concerned about project-based work, again, you can learn more in our Pricing Profitable Work 101 course, which we're giving away today. So we have a calculator for that too, right? So when we get to this point where it's like, okay, we know our hourly break even, now how much do we charge? And this is where we're starting to say, all right, let's balance the stool. Let's make sure it works for our client. Let's make sure it works for our employees, our staff, make sure we can pay them enough, make sure we can give them plenty of time to get the work done and still be profitable. So I want to walk you through this calculator with some real numbers. This is called our scenario calculator. And it's so that you can kind of play with your numbers and figure out what will work to make sure that you're profitable and make sure that you have a good cost of goods and that everything is healthy. Okay. So Aaron, would you jump on for a second? I want to have you walk me through some of your numbers. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So for those of you who don't know Aaron actually runs a really successful, in addition to being the CEO of Lawn Care CEO, runs a really successful lawn care fertilization company called RDS. And so I don't know if he's going to give me his real numbers or not, but give me close to what your real numbers are.
Yeah.
And,
so
we can have something real. So the first question is going to be, what's your hourly break even?
Yeah. Real quickly, I want to say something real quick. No one in this scenario, I'm not charging per hour for the work. There was a couple questions. We don't charge per hour and or comments. I think it's important to understand that everyone is budgeting time, right? And so the formula that we're going to use for this is how much time does this job take? And somebody said we're paying on performance or commissions, not hourly. And there's some ways around that too. But for now, let's just think of this as an hourly break even when you're thinking about how much time do we need to budget for the job. So we'll make that clear as we go through this. So Dan, hourly break even, let's put in 87.58.
All right, 87.58.
Right. So you would have gone through the calculator, you would have identified what your break even. Somebody also said, I know this hourly break even for multiple divisions. I could easily, average that. Unless your company is over $10 million in revenue, I think you should average it across the company. It's just really, the juice isn't worth the squeeze almost. If you're just a super nerdy numbers guy and you love this stuff and you want to get really, delicate or deep into the details, you can. But in this case, this is a FERT only example, a company that does FERT and we control only. So 87.58 labor hourly, something Dan and I are going to,
how much are we spending on labor, Aaron?
yeah, how much you're spending. So let's just roughly say, to pay a really good technician in the Charlotte market, let's just say we're budgeting somewhere around, $22 an hour. And then, let's just say with benefits and everything, let's just make that $28 loaded labor, everything.
Okay.
So we pay
$28
healthcare,
loaded labor.
All right.
So again, as we go through this, so hourly break even, we're putting in how much are we charging, right? How much are we actually paying out of pocket for our labor?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing we're going to add is all right, how much does it cost us per unit, per 1,000 square feet of fertilization? How much are we paying per 1,000 square feet? Now, we could talk, and we will talk in our next call a lot about how we get to this number. For now, I just wanted the number.
Yep. $2.52. If you don't say 250, that's fine.
252. And then each time so we're going to put in some how we're budgeting hours time here. And I don't have a ton of time to explain this, but simply put, minimum stop, no
10.
matter how big the property is, I'm going to pull up and it's going to take me from the time I put it in the park to the time I unload. And then I start spraying. That's going to be one period of time. And then from the time I stop spraying, get back in the truck, that all is about the same. So Aaron, how much do you allocate per stop for guys? The non-spraying time.
And this non-spraying time, this would be putting yard signs in yard, knocking on the door and letting people know you're there if you do that, taking pictures of the property. Those are things we do. So let's just budget 10 minutes. Okay. And real quickly on this, please don't get in a race here and think that, you're Superman and you're so much faster and put that fast time in here. I'm sure that you are. I'm sure you have guys who are much faster than this minimum that we're putting in here. The reality is I want to build this on the most average person I could ever hire, because this is helping us price our work, right? We don't want to price it on our fastest person. If you're an owner operator, you're going to be way faster than anybody you hire. So don't get in an ego thing here and go, well, we're way faster. That's a 5-minute minimum. And, I do 1,000 square feet in 45 seconds or whatever. So just caution you on that. A lot of people we coach do that when we get to this point. Put your most average, basic, kind of newly trained guy out there. All right, 10-minute minimum, Dan. Let's put a minute 25 in the minutes per 1,000. All right. And then, all right, 1.25.
And so this becomes our assumptions. This is what our company, our numbers are. And because we know our numbers, we now can calculate, understand, we built this whole calculator. So you can now see if I, for example, had let's say an 8,000 square foot yard, how much do you charge for an 8,000 square foot yard, Aaron?
We're going to probably be are you 8,000? $89.
So $89 per treatment. All right.
So go back to your minutes per 1,000, Dan. That's 1.25.
Well, you said at 25 minutes. Oh, sorry. 1.25. I got you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So if you look, if you had an 8,000 square foot job, this is going to give you a lot of really cool information. One, how long do we expect someone to be on the job? Well, 0.33 hours, which is something like 20 minutes. We're going to give him, we're basically going to break even at $49.35 is our out of pocket expense on that job. And we're going to make $39.65 for a net profit on this job of 45%. I'm like, raise your hand if you're down for a 45% profit. It's great, right? Love it. Our labor cost is $933.
Hey, Dan, hold on one second real quick. On the net profit, remember our all-in break even calculated all of our drive time last year. It calculated all of our, our stops in between. It calculated all the loading and unloading. If you're tracking hours. By the way, no matter how you're paying people, you have to track time in most, I'm sure every state in the country. I know in my state you do. So this net profit number should be a true 45% net profit in this scenario, as long as we do this job in 20 minutes. And you certainly should be able to do this job in under 20 minutes. We know that if we budget for that, we're going to win, right? So just want to make that clear on this net profit number. We factored in all of those costs.
The whole goal of this calculator, and even if you have to just set aside a Saturday and really work through the numbers and really kind of play with them, is to allow us to understand the money relationship in our business. Because that's at the center of all this. We want to know, not guess. We want to know. And so, for example, as Aaron mentioned, if we had guys that instead of 10 minutes, we're spending 20 minutes on a job, you'll see what happens to our profit. It goes from 45% profit down to 28% profit. And so even that extra 10 minutes where we're sitting on our phone and we're on Facebook and we're like, all of that really makes a difference when it comes to our actual numbers. And we want to help you understand those numbers. So, I mean,
can you go back real quick, Dan, to the scenario calculator? Sorry. Now, something that I love to see, if you'll go back and put minimum stop at 10 minutes, Dan, for the scenario, we kind of breezed over the COGS real quick. When we look at the cost of goods sold, there's a couple numbers that I want to make sure that this is probably the most important number to me as I evaluate a company, whether it's mine or others that we work with. And it's the cost of goods as a percentage of revenue. This example is a fertilization weed control company. That's what we're talking about today. If you're not under 35% cost of goods as a percentage of your revenue, then you're probably either inefficient or your price too low. And you know, I see companies in the low 30s. I will tell you this. If you're a scaling company and you're trying to get market share, I'm okay if it creeps up to 40, but you need to understand why it's creeping up to 40. You need to know that you're buying some of the market or something like that. Sure. If you are trying to be profitable and maintain profitability, and you're thinking more profit, over growth, then it needs to be under 35%. And so just understand the COGS are. We can tell a lot about a company, and honestly, it doesn't really matter if you're in California or North Carolina or anywhere else. The percentage of cost of goods is a very good number to look at. We can get really messy in the overhead, and there can be a lot of vanity stuff, like Dan said. But the cost of goods as a percentage is a really important number to look at. And again, it's really the labor and materials as a percentage of your revenue.
Yeah. So if you're like a normal person at this point in this webinar, we're 50 minutes in and your head might be spinning just a little. If your head isn't spinning just a little, I'm not sure we did our job right. Let me push pause on all of this and help you understand kind of where I want you to be as a coach. One, I want you to have learned today. I need to know my numbers and feel committed to understanding the numbers of your business in a way perhaps that is more significant than you have up to this point. It is the difference between me going to my daughter's soccer game and me not. It's the difference between me paying for my kids' college and me not. It's the difference between me being able to take care of my team in a meaningful way and offering them benefits and not. So number one, I need you to be committed to that. And we blew through 3 hours or 4 hours worth of content in about 25 minutes. So that's why, by the way, I keep like hawking my wares here, is like, it's going to take more time than we've had today to get to where we need to be. Number two, I want you to understand that your pricing model needs to be different than your neighbors, because your business is different than your neighbors. And if you're just charging the same thing everyone else is charging and you get to the end of the year and there's zero left in your bank account, that's because you've been borrowing the wrong pricing model. You need to create your own, right? It's like underwear. You can't borrow anybody else's, okay? And number three is I want you to feel committed to becoming more profitable. Now, you can see why this is not a one-time webinar. It's a 3-part course. It's because it's going to take more than one conversation for us to learn this craft. And so I'll just kind of remind you about this idea of being kind of all in, being absolutely all in on getting to a level of profitability that you're proud of and that works for yourself, works for your family, works for your team. And by the way, that still is able to serve and take really good care of your clients. And so that's my goal through those 3 goals. 1, I know I need to be better and know my numbers. 2, I am willing, understand that my price point needs to be unique. And then finally, I'm committed to go through the process of really understanding how to get my numbers to the right place. Fair? So again, I'm sorry we couldn't magic pill you and solve all your problems in an instant. That's not how it works. It takes time. We wanted to get you those 3 things. Hopefully we succeeded in that. Okay, we have like a little bit of time for questions. Then we're going to draw for the cooler. I think must be present to win. So stick around for like 6 more minutes. And let's handle just a handful of questions.
Can I do a rapid fire question thing right here on this? I've got some questions in here already, so I'm just gonna go down the list real quick. Someone said, don't charge per hour. I think I've already covered that. None of us do, but you better know what it costs you per hour. So that's the spirit of that. Have it broke down for multiple services. I would average it unless you're over 10 million on your hourly rate. We are commission based and not hourly. I am as well, Drew. I pay 14% of revenue. We are actually on the call before we got on the call today. Dan and I are actually hoping to add the ability to put a percentage in our calculator instead of doing hourly labor. But you could probably average in this case and work around that. Obviously, guys, maybe stay tuned. Maybe there'll be some kind of performance pay webinar down the road, but performance pay does help you control COGS, probably the best way. What's the ideal conversion rate percentage? I'm assuming we're talking about sales here. Man, that's all over the board, but I will tell you, if you're closing less than 40%, you probably have a sales process issue. If you're closing a higher rate than 65%, I would question if you're charging enough. So, somewhere between 40 and 65% is where I would want to land. If I was closing, and also I think Brent asked this question, conversion rate too, there's a lot of strategy involved in that. Are you trying to grow your market base? How aggressive are you going to be with your sales? Ashley asked, what's the best way to calculate if you're a new business and don't have enough customers yet to do this information? I think that's a great question. I think it's safe. Please don't do this and skip the class. But if you really don't have this information, you've not been in business long enough, or you don't have great books, $50 a man hour. It just depends on what you're doing. If you're
as your break even, right? As your break even.
Yeah, as your break even. Again, I don't like even saying that because it's like asking someone.
People are gonna want to cheat, right?
They're I mean, you saw some higher hourly rates out there. I'm assuming those are fertilization and weed control only companies. If you're fertilization and weed control only, you could be anywhere from high, 80s up to, low 100s on this. So, if you're planning to be a fertilization and weed control company, maybe you bump that rate up to about $80 to start with. Again, please, if you have good numbers, don't do that. That you're going to regret it. Let's see. Derek said, should we not at least double our expenses? This is a seasonal business. No, Derek. I mean, we're taking into account everything we did. By the way, you should, Dan covers all this, by the way, in the QR code class that he's going to send you. But you should be looking at this over the course of an entire year and then multiply or dividing all these costs by your labor worked in the field, the hours that your team worked in the field. So we do not double that. Taylor said, I had to take a call. My name is, are you calculating downtime to account for new routes with poor density? No, Taylor. I'd have to dig into more of that question, but I am not. I think you probably need to set your pricing based on what you need to charge, and know that your net profit probably gets better with it gets better with density. cost per unit is the cost of materials only? Yes. Cost per unit is the total cost of our program for the year divided by the number of rounds, right? Did I say that right? So we want to know what the average cost of product is per round, or for the round, and we want to use that number. So we're kind of averaging that out. Obviously, there's some rounds that may cost us $1 per thousand, or some may cost us $3.50. Get with your Harold's rep, and they can help you. And actually, Clay and the team are building out some pretty cool tools that should be ready in a few months that are going to help you guys a lot with that. What range do you want to be in for net profit percentage? Loaded question, man. If I'm scaling and I'm building a team, I might have 0% net profit. If I'm building leadership team and I'm trying to go to, 5,000 clients and take over a market, I may not be profitable for years. If I am trying to be, a very profitable company with about 1,000 clients and, I'm running pretty lean, I could have a 30% margin.
Yeah. Let me comment on that one real quick. So, essentially, and the P&L is not going to help us with this. Like, I want to get to the point where I have at the bottom line, like cash left over after I paid my COGS and I paid my overhead. I want a nice, healthy number. Then with those extra dollars, I can decide to reinvest in my company, or I can decide to keep those dollars, or some combination of the two. And so again, that's why the COGS number is so valuable for us to know. So really what we're looking at is if we can get our gross profit to a healthy place, which is like basically our our income minus our cost of goods. That's probably the thing we want to be thinking about, is we want to be thinking about our gross profit, and our gross profit wants to be somewhere between 60 and 65% probably for our gross profit.
Cameron said 35% COGS sounds really high. Can a large company really maintain that? I would think it would be closer to 20%. Cost of goods in this percentage, the only thing we're looking at right now for cost of goods is labor to provide the service. So field labor and cost of product. So in a scenario where we're talking about fertilization and weed control, if you're paying your team 15% to apply to treat the lawn, and then, your material cost around 20%, that's 35%. As we said, I've seen some companies at 28%, very large companies at 28%. That's great. But you can be very profitable at scale in the 30 to 35% range. I said earlier that I would push the envelope to 40% if I were trying to take over market share. So again, the ability to provide an really good job to someone, hire really high quality people to treat lawns, and use a really quality product, I think you're going to be closer to 30%, 35%. Materials and labor and fuel are all considered COGS. No fuel in that percentage. It's okay if you put fuel in your COGS, but for the purposes of the numbers we're giving you today, fuel's not in there. Fuel's probably going to be somewhere between 2 and 3% at the most. But don't put fuel in this for this scenario. COGS, labor, material, or does it include?
Aaron, hang on. Like, I want to have a collective round of applause for Aaron to be able to answer 30 questions in 7 minutes. All right, we promised that at the end of our hour. So can you tell that we're pretty passionate about this, and that we care about it, and we're really interested in helping you with it? If you need more help, again, go to the course, study the course. If you need more help from there, please reach out to us, reach out to your Harold's rep, reach out to someone. We're not leaving you alone here. We know that this can be hard and it can be difficult to get these numbers right. But the goal, again, is for you to know your numbers. No more gut, no more guessing, no more asking a friend. Let's know our numbers. Let's be great CEOs and great leaders.